You can't stop me now. You can't stop me. You can't stop me.
Good evening, I'm Zarganat and welcome to the studio. I'm just thinking what I really ought to do is the picture that you're looking at of me. It must be cropped because the camera's sat at an angle. And it's most disconcerting in a way because it kind of looks like I'm offside. So maybe I'll have to adjust that at some point. But anyway. Yeah then. I did have a headache earlier on tonight, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful. But we shall see how things go. So, carve this down. So, change glasses. Glasses, by the way, in this particular case, not quite as good as safety glasses. Indeed, I potentially should be wearing safety glasses over the top, but can't find that. So what I'm doing is could be better. Okay, good practice would be to wear safety glasses over the top of this. These at least will stop direct wood chips getting at me, but not anything that comes up the sides. And certainly these would not be good enough for high velocity or hot stuff. Right, so let's turn that on. That's interesting idea. I think I like that idea. It just occurred to me. I'm just looking around there and it's got like a slope on it, and I quite actually like that slope, so I might leave it. So rather than do that, let's get the chisel out. Unfortunately, this table doesn't tip that way, so you've got about the best view I can give you of this unless I raise it up a little bit. I got down there like that. Right, I'm carving with the grain, so here there's a great danger of the wood splitting. My bothered by it, I guess, is the case. Well, what I know with the wood grain on this particular piece of wood is that it's virtually horizontal. Therefore, at this stage, if I get a split, it's going to run virtually horizontally straight across, which will not be too detrimental to the piece. So I'm not fantastically bothered therefore about carving in the direction of the grain rather than carving cross grain. Carving cross grain that way would definitely tend to avoid that problem. I don't want to put my foot on that, so let's put that just to stand that to one side. this control you can't see, but this is the controller for the micromotor. It's quite a nice controller actually. You can set a maximum speed or the actual drill speed, and then the switch is on the front, which will reverse it if you've got reverse burrs, or it will. You can switch in a foot control, which is down on the floor, which is there's two types available for this. There's an on-off control, in which case you set the speed and you've got an on-off control, or I've got a variable speed control foot pedal, so that will control the speed from 0 to what's set on the dial, which is quite nice. And you can enable that or disable it, power switch there, so it's a really quite a nice unit, is that? But you're gonna kind of don't want to stand there with your foot on the pedal, because at some point you'll lean on it and the motor will start up. It's in its cradle, so it shouldn't jump too far, but you don't really want power tools running for no reason. Right, I have to remember I don't want this to go all the way down to background level, because it has a frame, yes. That was nearly something that I would have done if it had happened. I'd have done something about it, but to sort of avoid the problem. But the best way of avoiding the problem is not to have the problem in the first place. Now, the best way of fixing the problem isn't to avoid having it in the first place. That sounds better. So this bit will actually end up having to be smooth carved. Because I want to put a different design texture on top of it. It's the other problem you've got when you're carving with the grain, is it does tend to jab you in the nails. I'm just thinking whether I should get a different gouge out. Let's get a slightly larger gouge. Still with a fairly deep. Yeah, now there I've come to a stop, and the wood's telling me I'm doing something wrong. So it would probably, well, it did split, and it was telling me it was going to do it, and I can hear the click of these splitting. But if you come to a dead stop, I describe it as the wood telling me. I mean, it doesn't physically say anything, of course, but it is giving you an indication that something isn't right. Okay, that's roughly at the level I want there, so now I work away from that. slopes up. So I can feel the thickness of the wood, and I can feel the slope either like that, or doing it this way you can feel your fingers move and you can feel where it gets thicker or thinner. Switch to a slightly less aggressive one there, just because that's being a little bit. I'm using a bit too much force than I was wanting to. What we'll do is we'll just run an outline down there so that we don't carve away I could use the power tools for all of this. Fortunately I can't find my large cutter, which would make this a lot quicker. It may actually be even in the big, in my big Fordham box. Thinking about it, but the micro motor will swing quite a large cutter, which will get rid of this stuff fairly quickly. What I'm using here is a relatively small cutter. It is in fact a dental drill, and doesn't shift the wood quite as quick. So trying to do all of this with this would be possible, just time consuming. It would be better with the right tools, or perhaps the right bits, because this is the right tool. Is a right tool. Though. Right, so effectively just cutting a channel there, and I'll do more of that with the tool, because cutting these small gaps down there like that is a lot easier. Right, I'm throwing sawdust into the air, so I'm going to keep drinking. Otherwise I'll be getting sawdust in my throat. Now this weekend I may try and find the big cutter I thought I had, or rather the big cutter I know I've got, I just don't know where it is. Although at this moment in time I don't actually know where my hanging motor, the other Fordham motor I've got, is. By the way, when you're carving with a gouge, you don't actually have to hold it flat. You can actually tip it, especially if you need to get into certain spaces. Like I'm trying to get around this banner here, I can just tip the tool sideways to get close in. Carving onto a piece of wood is difficult. Very difficult to do. Normally you want to carve off rather than on. In this particular case, don't really have the space to do it. And by space I mean I'm carving that way. I need to sort of, well, yeah, I can a little bit, and there is enough space there to carve off. If you really need to carve on a piece of wood using a gouge, if you can keep the top edges above the surface of the wood, then you stand a better chance of being able to carve on successfully. Carving on with a flat chisel is quite difficult. This particular song reminds me of a children's programme, Captain Scarlet and the Mr. Ons. So, largely speaking, just lots and lots of wood removal. Yeah. Yeah, it's wood split. Can't carve that way. Splitting it. Looks like I might be doing some of this more with the power tool than I was expecting. But let's by the way, if you, I'm using this power tool right to left, as you can see, and I'm doing that because the bit is rotating clockwise when viewed from the back, and so it's running in the direction. It's more aggressive if I do it the other way. So. If I do it this way, it's less aggressive. So doing it the other way, it makes it actually quite difficult to control. What I might do, yeah, let's try that. I'm being a bit tentative just because the bits get hot. The chattering sort of noise is because I can't actually hold the thing in place on the wood, it's bouncing. It is weird when you find yourself pressing down on a foot pedal in order to make the chisel that's in your hand go forward. In this particular case, that doesn't work. There are some situations where that will, but not with these tools that I've got here. You're basically just seeing me switch between power tools and hand tools, just depending on which one it seems reasonable to use at the time. Now the edges of this banner I want to be fairly straight up and down, so just carefully trimming. I'm actually wondering if it's time to break out the big chisel. Maybe not quite yet. Yeah, we'll cut that straight down. And again, most people that have been on the channel before will have heard me say this, but don't pull off a piece of wood like this. If it doesn't want to come off, if it's on a cord, it means you've not cut it through. And if you pull it off, you rip wood. And sometimes you rip wood where you did not want that wood to rip. So you always make sure that you cut wood off. Never pull it off. Even sometimes the smallest piece of wood, you look at it and go, that won't do anything, and you rip it and it just grows and grows and grows. Okay, okay, I've got a big flat chisel. I've got it, is it 1 inch? No, it's 1 inch. 7/8. A 7/8, which is a nice chisel sometimes for doing things like this. It gets kept in its own box. Mainly because the tool roll I've got there is one slot short for putting this in. But I do have a bigger tool roll. But then it takes about 15 chisels. And putting one chisel in it looks a bit silly. And if I transfer all of those to it, it still kind of looks a bit silly, and I kind of miss having the small tool roll. So yeah, this sits in its own box for the moment. Now I'm going to start and flatten this down. And when you start to flatten things down, the bigger the chisel you can use, the better. Because you're less likely to get bumps and undulations if you can use a bigger chisel. Because it's harder to twist it. Of course, it can also work against you. If you have the wood at an angle, and it then gets harder to flatten it down. So there we go. There's a bit of wood that did not want to come off. In the end it realised it had no choice, but it fought for a while. I've managed to get a cut mark there, which is something you don't normally want, and so what you end up having to do is to just shave the wood in that area until it goes away. And yeah, then actually I'm not necessarily all that, well, I'm all that bothered about getting a perfectly flat area here, to be honest. It kind of looks like a rustic sort of thing on the drawings of the Hearthstone cards. So yeah, sort of either the rough stonework, the rough work, might look like it's sort of been affected by the ages, shall we say. That is going to be interesting. Grain of the wood here. So I'm trying with this chisel is very carefully not to get under to get under the wood and lift the wood up, which would be a split basically. So I'm partially having to use this like a knife, and partially I'm having to use it a bit like a plane. You see the wood split there. So pushing it sideways like this is using it like a knife, and that does help sometimes get you through awkward areas of wood. And I've got a knot there as well. Now, one of the nice things I guess about this chisel a little bit is it's got these that angle on it, which means I can get into some corners that if the chisel was perfectly sort of straight I wouldn't be able to do. That area there is higher than this, and I'm debating whether to carve it down. With big chisels like this, what you can do is you can turn it that way to help you gauge whether you're flat or not. And I'm not, and I know that, but this can sometimes help you sort of just shave areas. You're kind of using the chisel upside down, but sometimes it does help. Especially if you sort of want to take off high spots. You can kind of hold the chisel down flat, but it doesn't always mean that it won't dig in or anything like that. That might do for the moment. This is only rough cut, so okay. Switch chisels. Smaller chisel, you've got more force available to you than with the big chisel. suppose in a way, carving is one of the, it's kind of an ultimate negative space thing, because you're always thinking about the stuff you want to remove that doesn't want to be there. Effectively the negative space, the stuff that isn't, or the stuff that's around what you want to leave. Not bad. Right, let's change tax again. Too low. Come up. If I drop the table down too far, I can't actually tighten it up because there isn't enough distance between the lowest part of the table and the table. Really? Right, so next thing I am going to do here is I am going to do a little bit of work on the lettering. I think this could be fun. You know what? Let's switch. I'm switching from that bit to a smaller one. Yeah, okay. Laptop, hello. Yeah, I do. It's just that when I'm concentrating sometimes on stuff like that, where literally one slight movement with the tool will chew through the wood that you want to keep. I don't want to look sideways, because just that moment of inattention can actually sort of rip things across. I've just started playing about with carving out the letters there using the rotary tool. I don't know whether I like it or whether I actually want to hand carve those, but I may not have a lot of choice according to the wood. But hello! You want to send us some love? Oh, well, that's nice of you, thank you very much. Yes, carving, there's a lot of sometimes chat and carving are kind of difficult things to reconcile. Hello, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Chat and carving are kind of sometimes difficult to reconcile, because when you're using sharp chisel, and these things are, this one's a little bit blunt, these things are razor sharp, and a slip can harm not only you but what you're working on. So sometimes with chat over there, I don't necessarily always want to look, but thank you very much. You're raiding with a party of 13. Okay, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome everybody. Well, it's nice to know that you think carving is cool. I quite like carving as well. That's very kind of you. Those of you that obviously are joining don't know. Zaragan Art, that's me. Crafty. Is that a compliment or not? I'm not quite sure. But hello DMAC, nice of you to say hello in chat. Hope everybody's doing well. So, Lupo TV, what do you broadcast then? What have you been streaming? Hello Tracy. I think you spelled that wrong, but I know what you mean. Nice. Hello and welcome. You're a wood whittler. Whittler. Okay. And Mary Mendel. I can't hardly see that. Hello, and thank you all for following. That's very kind of you. Vicky Online, thank you for the follow. Variety of topics, uplifting. Okay, that's cool. Thank you very much. Still on the phone. Head changed. Also, thank you for the follow. Lost skill. Okay. In the genre of shanks and toothpicks. Well, it's all different stuff, you know. I'm not quite sure I'm a woodmaster, Pellegrin, but thank you. Yeah, there's everybody is following. Tracy, thank you very much. It's hard to concentrate on sharp tools and things, but what was I doing? Oh, is that DMAC followed as well? Sorry, they're coming slightly out of sequence on my screen and on that screen there. Ah dear. What was I doing? I've completely forgotten now, of course. Oh, thank you very much, Lupo TV. That's very kind of you. Tell us about what I'm making. Okay, what I'm making this particular time. It would be a good idea, wouldn't it? I mean, you're watching me. You have to perform gnome tasks by not chopping off my fingers. Half the time I wonder whether that's what people come to see, is whether you actually sort of catches off with these. Okay, this is what this particular piece is going to be is a Hearthstone card. One of the, or part of the Hearthstone card for the, well, obviously those of you that may have seen Hearthstone. In fact, I've got an image here. So it's kind of the top half of that. There we go. Now I've already done that about a week or so ago in pyrography. So it just seemed like a good thing because of the shape. It just seemed a good piece to do in carving. We're using two different kinds of carving here. Chisel carving or hand carving, and power carving using a rotary tool. And these incidentally are dental bits. So I'm using the same sort of stuff your dentist uses on your teeth. And it's kind of, you get to learn the skill of the dentist when this stuff disappears through a piece of wood really, really quickly, and you think, I'm glad it doesn't do that with teeth. Yeah, and I sometimes have fun with chat, by the way, because lots of people learn about using chisels and using knives. I'm sure you've heard of it. Never cut towards yourself. So often when I get new people in the chat, one of the things I do is this. It gets people all sorts of very slightly kind of worried, because they've all heard about this, never cut towards yourself. and I do that quite a bit of the time. And you get them expecting me to jab myself with it, and of course I don't. But that's one of the I kind of troll chat in that way when you get people who think they know what they're talking about. But I never chop my fingers off. In fact, I have never yet cut myself on a chisel. And I'll rephrase that. I've never yet cut myself carving, either with these or I have a pair of knives. Excuse me a second. Which I also use for carving. When you're hand carving, you hold the piece of work in one hand and use the knife in the other. And I haven't got one here, but you're often carving like this, cutting towards your thumb, or even sort of, it gets quite interesting watching people's reactions if they're around you. But there again, when I'm doing that, I use a Teflon glove. So, but I'm sure people, when I'm doing the knife carving, I'm sure people come to see me slash my fingers. Indeed you can, Pelgrim, and that's the whole point about it. You realise, a lot of people don't, the trick that I do, the trick about what I'm doing when I'm cutting towards myself, and you obviously realise, Marina Mado, thank you. It's a bit difficult to say, I keep wanting to say Mariana Radio, but welcome, thank you. Is the fact that I'm driving the chisel with my fingers. And when I drive the chisel with my fingers, I can't go anywhere. It's as far as I can reach. Beginners who use their whole arms, well, that's a different matter. And that's why they tell beginners don't cut towards yourself. But I really ought to get on and do some. In fact, I've just sort of formed. I hate this. One of the things I'm using bits for, as they save up and I get them, is I'm going to get myself a new carving vise. I do not like this one. It's got very limited movement, and it's right awkward to use. And I wish I'd never bought it, but there again, you've got to learn these things. So what I was doing is just smoothing this level down. I'm doing rough carving at this stage, and rough carving is really just, if you were painting, it would be called underpainting, but it's just establishing levels. In fact, just before you raided, I was just playing about with doing some carving on the letters, because what I'm going to do is overcarve that to drop the level down for this banner. But I'm gradually working out levels. So I've got a background here. I then step up, because this has got like a frame around it. So we've got the banner, which is at the highest level, and then we go fairly deep here for the background and the things that the Gibberer is stood on before we actually sort of get to the Gibberer, which is, I almost want the Gibberer to be at the highest point. And I might actually cheat, because I kind of want it to look like he's about to come out through the frame. So what I might end up doing is, and this is kind of work in progress, but if I lower the whole of the surface like this banner, which naturally looks like it's on top of everything, but if I lower it all down and the frame down, so it still looks like it's on top of the frame and the stuff behind it, but I don't lower the centre, then the very sort of nose of the Gibberer, which is here, and the bit, is actually going to be above the frame, as though it's actually coming out. So, what's the Gibberer? I have actually no idea. But apparently there's domesticated ones and feral ones, and this one's a feral one. So that's a Gibberer. Cuddly little thing, isn't he? I only say there must be domesticated ones, otherwise you wouldn't really describe one as being feral. It kind of feral distinguishes it from non-ferals. But it's a Hearthstone card. Yeah, it is a Hearthstone card, Con Muscles, you're right. Vicky Online, you're back. You've been watching Arts and Crafts. That's good. That's about all I ever watch on Twitch these days. You're stuck on the phone for a transfer. I suppose it is a bit like a gremlin, isn't it? But it's got bigger. It seems to have bigger teeth. So big chisel. I'm just flattening this down because the background. I'm going to leave this rough like this because it adds interest because it's textured. But this bit here is going to have a pattern carved into it. Just some sort of random sort of background, and so I want it fairly flat, and that's what I was kind of working on before I did a slight digression to look at carving into the thing. So unfortunately this bit of wood that I'm carving on, the wood's nice. It's called basswood, or it's got another name which is European lime. And it's a lovely wood for carving because it holds detail really nicely and generally cuts quite nicely. But unfortunately, this piece of wood, the grain of the wood is exactly vertical and parallel to the surface, and that's a really hard thing to carve, because just about every cut is in danger of splitting the wood, and that is one of the big challenges with this. And I've been using the rotary tool to kind of help a little bit to get into some of the areas where doing it with you can cut it with a normal chisel, but it gets boring for me and tiring. So I'm not sort of being pure about it. It has to be hand chisels or anything like that. I use an appropriate tool for the job. Now then, this sort of stuff here, by the way, if you ever do any carving, one tip: see stuff like this, don't pull it. If you pull it, you will rip wood. And what you might end up doing, and it might sound daft because this looks quite thin, but if I were to pull some of this, I may end up splitting the whole of this end off, especially the way this grain is running. So one of the things for carvers is always cut, don't pull. If it doesn't fall off, it's still attached, and if it's still attached, you've not cut it off properly, so you need to cut it. I don't know, Kate, but it's very likely that the answer is yes. A lot of people do use basswood for wood burning. I don't. It's quite an expensive wood in the UK. It's not that I wouldn't use it, and I did an owl a little while ago, and there's a tiny bit of pyrography on that. Just for the beak and the eyes, I think, and it's a nice wood for pyrography. Again, with pyrography, there's certain qualities you look for in the wood, and basswood does have those qualities. For pyrography here in the UK, I generally use birch wood. It's cheaper over here to get hold of, and it's easier to get hold of, to be honest. And I use that, and it also produces quite a good result. Birch is actually whiter than this, which makes it a bit easier to get more different tones as well. Oh, Mandelas, okay. I'll have to have a look. I might well have seen that, to be honest, especially now that you mentioned Mandelas, because I think I've seen some of that. I tend not to do that style of pyrography though, which is tends to be pure black and white, shall we say. I'll show you the sort of thing. I'll be back in just a moment. Actually, whilst I was going to get some pyrography, but I'll just show you another carving. This, if I can get the right angle to display it on. There we go. That's a dragon, which was carved. Probably did that one about 6 months ago. Yeah, basswood is a nice wood. It's definitely a nice wood. This was the pyrography of. Let me tip it up this way. This is the pyrography of the Gibberer that I did. I still can't get. Is this camera reversed? No, it can't be because I can read it. So I did that in pyrography, and then went ahead to do the carving. But I do all sorts of stuff in pyrography as well. A dragon, yeah. If you have read a series of books by an author called Anne McCaffrey, that dragon is a representation of Ruth, the white dragon. How about the lion then? I mean, I know I'm carving today, but you've got a lion. And I haven't done much airbrushing on channel, but I used to airbrush a bit. And one of the first things I ever painted in airbrushing was a Walt Disney monorail. And one of the first things I did in pyrography was the same thing. In fact, it's the same picture. But I kind of, it's almost become a. Anytime I do a new art medium, this is the picture I do. But the first one that we did on stream was this one. Salute to Sunset. So you've got an elephant and of course the giraffe in the background, African savannah, and the sun's going down. I like the train as well. You got some nice shading on that. I think one that was also we have 4 cats here, and this is one of them. This is Theo the kitten. He's actually a year old now, and this was done about 3 months ago, and. He didn't exactly sit for it, shall we say, but he does come in and visit from time to time. Thank you. There's a few around. I mean, there's another Hearthstone card. There we go. So similar style, but slightly a slightly bolder card is that one. But there's well, in fact, where is? Oh, yeah. I can't actually show you the last one, which was a leopard, because out of the dark, because Lady Sarah, my wife, has got that elsewhere. But I have started doing an extreme close-up of it in pyrography on paper. You can do pyrography on paper. So I don't do this one. This one isn't done on stream, but this is kind of just I'm doing when I have a few moments. So. You've got quite a few things there. Cool cats. A ginger one as well. Oh, is that your? Is that one of yours? Lupo TV, or is it somebody else's? You've never seen it, but yeah, you can do pyrography on quite a few things. Leather, bone. Ivory you can do it on, but working with ivory is basically illegal these days. Paper, papyrus, anything made in basically, well, I was about to say anything that's kind of a wood product. So you can get things like gourds as well that you can do pyrography on. I wouldn't recommend doing pyrography on either bone or leather, though it smells terrible. It's a horrible smell. If you ever watch me from time to time, because there's lots of cats around here, there's an odd cat hair in the air, and sometimes it gets on the end of the pyrography tool, and burning hair. I mean, it doesn't set fire, but it cooks, and it is a horrible smell, really horrible. Thank you very much, Vicky Online. Vicky Online. I keep wanting to say Vicky Online, but it's Vicky Online, and it's easier to say that way. Thank you very much. So we do that sort of thing. So you've seen. Oh, I mean, I can go off. I have been broadcasting for. I started. I've done about 6 months now. I took a year off before that. Then I broadcast for a year. So I do all sorts of things. I've even made a helicopter on stream, model helicopter. But we do all sorts of things. Paperboard is another one that I do quite a bit of. We've done punchcraft. I make miniature rugs. Here's a miniature rug. It's a circular miniature rug, but. There you go. And this is sort of material. He says trying to show you, but not getting it on camera. So this is actually sort of rug pile. So these are little loops of thread, and you take pictures with them. So if you want to see some odd, well, it's a variety of crafts. I do things. The thing below the stream window describes me as a little bit of a short attention span. To be honest, I can do these sorts of things all day, but I do like to switch between different crafts. So I've been doing a fair bit of pyrography just recently, doing a little bit of carving. Might do some engraving next. I don't really know. Yeah, so do I. Even the big ones. Here's a big one that I'm working on. This one probably won't even go. There we go. I'm just about to get it on. Now this is a big rug, and that one's nearly finished, but that won't go on the floor. To be honest, it'll get hung up somewhere. That's Scooby-Doo for those of you who have not seen the cartoon. What I would suggest is do not use sandpaper or anything like it. Vicky Online, you should do, definitely. What I would suggest, corn mussels for cleaning tips. First of all, simplest way to clean the tip, especially when it's warm, piece of kitchen paper, fold it up, and when the tip's warm, you can clean it off. Very, very slightly abrasive, so it will get most of the carbon off. But if you want to polish the tips up, literally get some metal polish. Now, what I use is actually this. Now, because I happen to have it, this is what I use when I'm actually sharpening the chisels, and it's more of a honing process, shall we say, rather than sharpening. But this is a very mild, soft abrasive, so I put that onto the pad, and then I use the chisels on it. But you can also use a tip. So something like a metal polish is just enough. Very, very mild abrasive. You do not want anything that's a strong abrasive, because what you'll do is you'll create grooves in the base of your tool, which will hold the carbon and whatever else it is that comes off and sticks to the tips, but that's enough to polish it. So a piece of leather, a bit of leather strop as it's sometimes called, a very mild polish, metal polish, or jeweler's rouge, something like that, jeweler's polish, is enough to clean that. You're old enough to remember Scooby. Yeah, okay. So am I. But then again, you can see that. Jeweler's rouge, yeah. No, jeweler's rouge is very fine. I mean, you can almost polish glass with jeweler's rouge, so that should be fine. One thing I would suggest is make sure you once you've done it, just make sure you rub it all off. Not well, a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't get onto the work that you're doing, but it cooks and it smells a little bit. So if you don't want the smell, just make sure you get the polish off. That's all. And then that's smooth. There's no need to do the top. Well, can be worth doing the edges, because with the pyrography tool, I don't know whether you would do it, but with these I often use the tips, the edges, to actually do part of the marking. The cleaning also works with the big, like the walnut hollow type tools, the big soldering irons type tools. You can do exactly the same thing. But yeah, you shouldn't use anything abrasive. I mean, this here is called wet and dry paper. This is 1200 grade. This is still too abrasive, and this thing is really quite smooth, relatively speaking. But I consider that too abrasive to use on the tools. Yeah. That was one of the reference pictures for the pyrography that I did not so long ago, and that's what I'm using as the reference for that paper, the paper leopard. Can't call it a paper tiger, which is unfortunate. Right, some wood a little bit more wood carving. What did I do with it? Yeah, don't lose chisels. So I'm just, actually this is quite flat, but I just want to flatten it down a little bit. I am rough carving, so I'm not especially bothered about getting it perfect, and the way in which I look at the image from which this is sort of representing is it kind of looks like something that you might sort of time worn, I guess is the sort of thing I'm thinking of. It's slightly chipped and things like that, and therefore it's, the surface isn't perfectly smooth and things like that. So I'm not looking to sort of have everything perfectly smooth. I am looking for like a slightly textured surface, and probably I'll distress the thing a little bit as well. Don't be. There's don't be so. Don't, I'll rephrase what I was about to say. Don't be concerned about it, corn mussels. There are people who do absolutely fantastic work with that sort of pen. Okay. The sort of pen I showed you there is expensive, together with the controller. Okay. It has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. So, I mean, the advantage is I can get my fingers right close to the end. I'm carving and I've got the camera tipped up here and you can't see what I'm doing. This sort of tool I can hold really close to the edge, to the tip, and I can use it like I can use it more like a pencil. But this tip It's directly heated, but it doesn't hold a lot of heat. So as I put that down on the wood, it cools off fairly quickly. I've got to sort of work within that constraint, and I have to understand that. But I do get the ability to have really fine control. The sort of tool you've got has a lot more heat stored in it, which means that you can do fairly large areas without losing heat, and at a fairly rapid rate if you want to do it. So from that perspective, that tool has its advantage. I don't like using that sort of tool because it's like holding a pencil back here and trying to get fine. I love fine detail, which is why that sort of pen doesn't suit me, because I'm trying to do fine detail. It's like trying to sign your name with a pen by holding the back of it rather than the tip. You can do it, and it takes practice, but there's a difference. But there again, this pen is about $20–25, or about 15–20 UK pounds just for the pen. That's without the cable and the control unit that it plugs into. So there's it's not bad. With this I can change the pen just like that and put another one in. When you want to change your tips, you've kind of got to let it cool down, take the tip out using some pliers, put another tip in. But again, just different. Well, that's the whole point, Core Muscles. Try it. That allows you to try it, see whether you like it, and then go on from there. If you look on YouTube, there are a number of artists that you'll see use that sort of pen and do some really phenomenal work. So it's not the pen, you just have to learn the characteristics of the pen and work within it. And if you do that, there's nothing wrong with it at all. As I say, if we're doing large areas, and when I was doing the leopard, the background is all black. Well, it's really dark brown. And it needs a lot of heat to get really dark like that without turning it to carbon. And the sort of tool you've got is great for doing that. Horses for courses. Well, good luck with that, Core Muscles. Hopefully it goes okay. Take your time, basically. Don't try and rush it. The secret with pyrography often is to take your time. You can always make, as you'll know, you can always make something darker. You can't lighten it very easily once you've once it's cooked, once it's there, once you've made that mark. You can't go any lighter than that. So if you take your time, you can always and do it light. You can always go over again and darken it again afterwards. Right, so that's not so bad. Let me change tack a little bit and do a little bit more in here. You get to see some power tools. In action. So I'm going to switch this one out for a slightly more aggressive bit. Go in there. And still working with dental drills. It's a pity, well, in this particular case it's a pity I actually do have a dentist drill, which I do use, but it's an air driven drill and I haven't switched the compressor on, so I can't get that one out. But these sorts of tools though are really good at changing wood into sawdust. And when I say sawdust, I don't mean the sort of things that you get for bedding for hamsters. I mean dust. This stuff is a powder. Now with carving, using power tools actually is a completely different set of skills. and it can be really hard actually. You sound daft as it may sound, but with a power tool it can be really hard to get a smooth surface. You almost get a smooth surface naturally when you carve with chisels because you're slicing. But with this, especially if you're using like a bowl shaped tool here, you're always cutting grooves and it gets really hard to create smooth surfaces. Yeah, that's yeah. I kind of understand that. One of the difficulties that you will have, and I have, is when you're not using the tool, when it's sort of switched on, but isn't actually in contact with the wood, it heats up. Now, actually, your tool will have be less of an issue with that. But with mine, the tool heats up, and if I just put that down on a piece of wood, I get the black blob, which it gets called the dreaded black blob, because it's got a lot of excess heat. It suddenly dumps into the wood and makes it go really dark. And if you're only wanting a really light colour, then it becomes that O-shaped moment when that happens, and now you have to worry about how to deal with it. And there's all sorts of tricks that you do with it. I mean, if you've got another piece of wood, you touch the tip to the other piece of wood first, which cools it down enough so that when you put it on, you don't overheat. Or the other one is what's called the landing technique. It's something that comes used in airbrushing a lot, but if you move the tool, touch it down but keep going, you don't get, or it's a lot harder to get the black blob, because you get the black blob because the tool is stationary. You put it down and move. If you touch it down whilst it's moving, it doesn't have as much time to transfer that heat into that particular area, and you don't get black blobs. It probably will work for yours as well, but I think because you've got so much heat, yours doesn't really vary in temperature a great deal. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, great idea. So, while we're talking pyrography, a couple of useful things. For practice, one of the things I use a lot is this is called hardboard. It's a construction type wood more than anything. Getting a lot of home centres. It's not a bad wood. It's manufactured. One of the things you've got to be a little bit careful of is there's a lot of glue in it, so you need a reasonably well ventilated area, or perhaps a gentle fan. But it's a really cheap wood for practice on, and it's got a reasonably consistent surface, so you don't have to worry about grain and things like that. You don't get as good a range of colours because it's darker, but it's a great wood, cheap wood for practice. And I was talking about birch earlier. Plywood, birch plywood the plywood is a good one for pyrography as well, especially if you're doing large surface areas, because it resists warping. If this was solid wood, I would probably need it to be at least 3 times as thick, otherwise it would tend to warp severely with the amount of pyrography that gets done on it. So plywood is a good one. Is that a Dremel or an actual dentist tool? In this particular case, it's neither. It's something called a micromotor. If you like, it's a posh Dremel, but it isn't Dremel. It's not, and it isn't a Dremel, and it's not the same sort of thing as a Dremel. This thing spins at 38,000 RPM. A Dremel makes about 10,000 at most, usually, and this is a lot more of a sophisticated control. there's a motor and a gearbox in this which drives the tool. So the motor is spinning at a prodigious rate. I don't actually know what its spin rate is. It's a lot, as you can see, it's a lot slimmer than a Dremel. Same sort of idea, just a Dremel is a lot slower, and speed is your friend when you're carving. The faster you spin the bait, the less likely it is to grab and skip and things like that. This sort of tool would be used not by dentists but maybe by dental technicians, for example, but it's also used in a lot of other areas. Stone carvers, people who, metal workers, all sorts of people will use this sort of tool. I do actually have a dentist drill, again one that would be used by a dental technician. That spins the bit at something like about 150,000 RPM, and it sounds like a dentist drill. And that's a great when you really want to do detail type work, just because it moves through the wood so easily. Yeah, it's a zipper version. It's got things like ball bases in it, which you don't tend to get in Dremels and things like that. So it's a more precision version. At a more precision price, of course, but it's also, you've got a very nice control unit with it. And I've got a foot control switch, so when you see me stood here, I can control it with my foot, which is also really nice. You can get basswood pretty cheap. Yeah, okay, in which case, it's a great wood for pyrography. It really is. It's also a great wood for carving. Yeah, well, it doesn't take much, of course. Core muscles. If you've got some wood, you can if you can get a plane, or if you've got general woodworking tools like a plane or sander, you can smooth the surface off really well. By the way, if you do pyrography on a wood surface, good idea is to take some sandpaper, fine sandpaper, sand it down first, which knocks a lot of the surface fibre off, and you'll get a more consistent colouring when you do it. Okay, well, there's a really nice gearbox in that one. Southern Rebel. Yeah, I kind of what I do is I pick it up. Oh, that looks interesting to try, and I enjoy doing it and carry on. So what I mean is, some of the jewellery making that I do. So the chainmail, for example, was that looks interesting. I'll have a go at that, and the beadwork, and I know one of the things that I want to try this year is some glasswork, but I'm not about to just go out and start that. I'm actually going to probably do something like a day's course to see whether I like it first before I go out and buy the sorts of equipment that I'm going to need to do glasswork. But usually I just think, what have I started? Oh yeah, well, it's something called magic dots. It's not. There's no skill. There is a skill in it. It's not a craft, but It's on the board at the moment, but. This is one of the things I've been doing recently. This is it's also called diamond dots, but this isn't. This is a clone. So what this is the picture. You won't be able to see it, but if you look here, you can see sort of dots or things. It's a bit like painting by numbers. These are lots of squares, and there's a letter or a number in them. And it basically means stick a coloured dot in of the right colour in that space. And this has been an interesting thing to do. It's quite a relaxing sort of thing to do. I say there's no skill in it, but you do have to get the dots the right way up in the right place, and this stuff is sticky. You get in the wrong place and it'll take a fair bit of getting off, but that's another fun sort of thing to do, which has been done on the stream. I'll just put that back out the way. Well, a lot of the stuff I love working with is the beads. The beads that for those of you who don't know, bead sizes get measured basically by how many fit in an inch. And the sort of bead sizes I like working with is called 11/0, or I've got a few 15/0. 11/0, there's 11 fit in an inch, so they're less than 1/10 of an inch, which is about 2 millimeters long. So, and they stay in tubes, and I don't open them, tip a few out, shut the tube. They don't stay open on the desk. So that's a wood I'm not familiar with, Southern Rebel. I've heard the name, but I've not actually seen it. I've got a feeling it's a reddish sort of wood, but I don't know. Oh, that's a nice compliment. Thank you, Lupo TV. I could make it easier for you, because I normally stop about now, but I will go on for a little bit longer. When there's people actively chatting, it's a lot more interesting. And I normally broadcast each night, and I'll broadcast from about 7 PM UK time, which is about 2 hours ago, to save you calculating it. And I go on until generally around about now, about 9 o'clock, which then gives me time to do one or two other things before I finally go to bed on an evening. But I don't mind carrying on. When there's lots of people talking and chatting, it's a lot more interesting. Well, I see. Yeah, well, that's kind of a slight. Yeah, you do have sort of a more of a reason to disappear than Lupo TV. So when I'm carving in areas like this, it's using a rotary tool that makes it a lot easier than trying to get a chisel in. I mean, I do have chisels that I can get into this area with. Some little tiny fine ones. Just to sort of show you. These are... you know what? I forgot to keep... Somebody will have to tell me to keep remembering to put that down. Yeah, little tiny. This is about 1.5mm across. Is that one? It won't focus on it, but it's you know, they are easily small enough to get into this sort of area, but to be honest, the thing is just so much easier. Red art and okay, yeah. There is an awful lot of very nice woods out there for which, you know, if you work them like with carving or people who do things like make bowls and things like that, those sorts of woods are really lovely. They're not always fantastically good for pyrography. Different woods take to pyrography differently. But one of the things is, if the wood's really dark, you have less range of colours that you can actually put onto it. If you imagine going from white to black, you can sort of let's say you can have 16 stages. If you start at grey, you then may only have 8. If you start at near black, you've got 2. And so, sometimes those woods can be difficult. But things like using really dark pyrography on things like deep red wood and things like purple hearts of purple wood can look really beautiful. You've got to pick the right. I think you've got to pick the right subject for those sorts of woods, though. You're not necessarily going to do a portrait on them, but you might do something, like the mandala, for example, or some sort of geometric design, and they can look really beautiful. Celtic knots tend to be a really good one for dark woods. Yeah, I will do. I like watching pyrography. I do not watch any... No, I'll rephrase that. Dan's Gaming is about the only person I watch playing games, really, to be honest. I watch a lot... most of the time I watch people doing things on creative. I prefer the people doing physical things. So like the pyrography, if you like, the glass blowing, the pot throwing... I'm not as keen on watching people draw, but that's just what I prefer to watch. I do draw myself, but I'm not one that watches it a great deal. Depends on the artist, because there's Lady Lucian, who's an artist that does all sorts of particularly like a pastel work, but that I watch sometimes. You might rusty. Oh, okay, yeah. I can imagine it's really, really nice. Cats are so good. Well, next time I can show you some of the other cat pictures. I've actually got another one just in front of me. But I've got some other pictures of Junior and Felix, who are our other 2 cats. But I've got a. This wasn't one of our cats, but this was made for a relative who is no longer with us, but unfortunately neither is the pussycat. So, but that was another ginger cat, actually. So, if you don't mind sitting through lots of long videos, so literally. But thank you very much, that's very kind of you. If you don't mind sitting through what is literally recordings of broadcasts, then just about every broadcast that I've done is on YouTube. They've all been archived onto YouTube, so if you really wanted to see me pyrographing Felix or Junior, for example, they are all there. But I will warn you, a pyrographic image of something like the Hearthstone cards, for example, something that's A4, is about 10 to 12 hours of work, so there's quite a lot of time in there. Okay, Lupo TV, thank you very much for that, for dropping in and for the raid. That's really kind, and have a great time. Tigger. Yeah. You had a 6-toed orange cat called Tigger. Interestingly, Muffin there used to get called Tigger Muffin. He was actually, in fact all of our cats are rescue cats. That one, the family member rescued it, and when they were on holiday in the UK, the cat just moved in and they brought it back with them. So unfortunately, I mean this does go through wood fairly quickly, but you don't always see a lot of progress. And it's kind of it's a nice easy tool to use, is this. And Vicky Online, one of the other advantages of this over a Dremel is, well, depends on your point of view, I'm just thinking, is you can hear me. If this was a Dremel, you probably wouldn't be able to hear me. They do tend to be somewhat noisy, but they are really nice and easy to use. I mean, I don't actually have to use any force on this at all. The wood just disappears. So it's you kind of need a light touch with this. It's not like using a power saw, for example, where you'd actually be physically pushing the thing. You are really just guiding this as to where you want it to go. It is kind of surprising just how easily dental drills get rid of wood. I know in the UK, this sort of carving is relatively unusual, and there's not sort of many suppliers that sort of supply these drill bits. So I was actually going to dental suppliers, and they're going to me, "But you're not a dentist." That's right. Why do you want dental drills? Because they're usually business only, you see. So Zarragan Art kind of is a business, so or can be represented as one, but I'm not a dentist, and it's always an interesting conversation. You know, I'm not gonna. I want it to carve wood with, but they're not meant for. Yeah, but they work. It's an interesting conversation. Southern Rebel, good evening, and thank you for dropping in. Sorry, I'm concentrating a little bit on what I'm doing. Yeah, got a lunch. It's cool here. It's about, I think it was about 0 degrees Celsius outside today. And Vicky, oh, I thought you were going then, but you're not. If I remember on the next stream, I'll fire the compressor so that if you come in, I can fire up the other one drill, and if you want the dental experience, I can fire the other drill up. This sort of tool is great if you want to do, it says trying to find a piece of wood that I'm going to cut. If you want to do things like a stippling sort of thing, which is just creating lots of dots. Now it's probably not going to show up here, but trying to do this sort of thing with a chisel is not really possible, but you can get a sort of a nice kind of mottled surface with it, which is a nice thing. I can, for vertical things, I can use a bit which is straight like this, and I can get quite straight edges. So there's a fair different set of tools available, and these are cutters. So these actually are like miniature knives, if you like. If you're familiar with a router cutter, then these are like router cutters. But there are also diamond tools. So quite a few of these things here, these spiky things, are diamond abrasive cutters, and they go through wood as well. But yeah, it's interesting. In doing this, I found out there are hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of different shapes of dental tools, dental cutters that you can get, and they're also football shaped and straight shaped and bowl shaped and spike shaped and inverted cones and all sorts of things. It's surprised the dentist knows just what to use. Okay, Vicky. Nails in the board. Yeah, no, not quite that bad. Yeah, that's the other problem. I really should be using an extractor fan here, but I can't be bothered getting it out, to be honest. Oh, you thought that was... Okay. No, these are... it's a simple way of storing them. So it's they're literally just pushed in. They're all a 2.5 millimeter shank, I think it is off the top of my head. So interesting. I think one of these cutters, this one, is 2.5 millimeter diameter. So to make these holes, it was just a case of put that in the drill and go down a few centimeter, and then they all fit in rather nicely. It's a great way of keeping them because they don't fall out, and you also don't have the problem when they're on the bench trying to pick one up, because some of these are sharp. They're needle sharp. He says, why does everybody test needles by touching the ends of them to find out if they're sharp, and then they're surprised when they are? Hello, Eddie Fall Guy. Well, unfortunately, Eddie, I'm not going to be on for long, but good luck with the delivery. Yeah, I really should use an extractor. An actual, like a vacuum extractor would be good while you're doing this sort of thing, but it's okay when I'm not broadcasting, but when I am, it's kind of a noisy thing to have around. Right, let's have a look what we got here. It's not as deep as I thought it was. No, I want to go deeper. Yeah, probably. If you're familiar with flour, this stuff is about as fine as it is with as flour is. And no, I won't drill your teeth if anybody's thinking of that. I might take commissions, but that's not one of them. Right, well. What I can do with this is I can get rid of most of the wood in the awkward areas, like in between here. And then what I can do once I've done that is I can take something like a sharp chisel, a straight chisel here, and I can then cut straight down and tidy up the sides. It's a bit easier than trying to do it with the rotary cutters. As I mentioned, I do have the straight cutter, which can do that. But to be honest, the chisels produce a much smoother surface than the rotary cutters do. And I'm not about to get in there with sandpaper to smooth it down, so I'm using this in just because it's awkward to get chisels in to do most of the cutting. This makes it easier, and then I can just go in and clean up afterwards. Gotta be careful, I don't get a mouthful of dust sometimes. Yikes. I missed that one, Vicky. Not quite sure what you're referring to there. Let me get, because let me just get, I've got a vacuum to the side of me, I'll just vacuum this off and we can have a look at what it looks like. See, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to mute the microphone because this vacuum is loud, so you don't damage your ears. Thank you. You see, I muted it to save your ears and then forgot to unmute it. Thank you. Oh dear. So I was trying to be nice. So what I was saying was, we spent quite some time sort of hollowing out these areas, which was kind of one of the things I did on the last stream. And just pulling out the major areas of wood. No real sort of shaping in it at the moment, other than sort of the block outlines. So things like the curved body of the the gibberer, or smoothing and rounding off the frame, putting the right curve on the banner. Those sorts of things will come later once we've got the major blocks and levels decided. And so the next stream is really just going to be carrying on with a lot of this, getting down to the right sort of level that I want things to be at, and working from there. So there's a fair bit. All the work we've done on this side is down here on this side as well. We've got to take that down. There's a jewel here. I'm not quite sure even whether I'm going to include it at this stage, but for the minute I'm going to include it. And then again, the inside of the frame here. The gibber itself in the card is kind of stood on some ruins, and it could be nice to put those in as well. Yeah. Now you get to see sort of the way the rubbish in the rest of the desk. In the background there's a 3D printer which we were building on stream at one point. I haven't done it for a little while. And there's that's the computer that I'm watching you guys on. And just in the background is the I don't know if you can see the blue. That's the airlines for the dental drill, and I also use them for the airbrushing as well. So there's a fair bit of stuff on the desk. Pyrography machine, as you can see. So just about, not every craft, but quite a few crafts are here on the desk. Okay. Yeah, you could still hear the music. That's because I can mute the microphone separately from the. If anybody does any streaming, this is a great stream deck. Is a great tool for streaming, because this, I'm using OBS. It works with the others as well, whose name has just escaped me. But it's a great thing because I can just push a button and I can switch scenes. Or the work back to. I can, but now you can. So if you ever do any streaming, that's a really nice tool to do things with. Because you don't need to use a keyboard, you don't need to remember hotkeys that might interfere with the game. If that's what you're playing, you can just push the buttons. No, it's thank you for joining and coming to see me, Vicky. It's Vicky Online. It's absolutely fantastic. For those that don't know. I try and stream every evening. I try and stream from approximately 7 PM UK time. It's on GMT at the moment, which is about 2.5 hours ago, and I generally will go for about 2 hours till about 9 o'clock or thereabouts. We've gone over a little bit tonight because you guys are all interested and it's fascinating to have you around. And so next stream will be tomorrow night. We'll carry on with some more of this. I tend to finish one project, then I'll maybe move on to a different craft and do something different, but this will be a while yet before we get that way, so I don't know what I'm doing next, but we'll do a fair variety of stuff. And I'll say thank you all for watching. Hope I'll see you on the next stream. Bye for now.